Hello, it is Robin here. We are going to do something that sometimes we take for granted. If you've been hooking or using patterns for a while, this may seem basic. But if you are new here, you may be like, I don't know how to do this. And that is totally understandable if nobody's ever shown you how to do it. And so, specifically, I'm talking about using PDF patterns onto backing. So, nowadays, it is quite common. You can order a pattern or purchase a pattern online that is called or is a PDF pattern. And you'd be like, how do I get a big pattern on my little printer? And you can. So typically, almost all the patterns I've seen nowadays are prepared so that you can print them on your standard 8 by 11, what is it, 8 by 8 and a half by 11 and a half, whatever it is. So your standard piece of paper on a basic home printer. That is all I have. My printer is nothing fancy. It's an Amazon I've had for a few years. And so I am using the pattern just to show you. Here is from the Oxford Company. The different companies, it may look a little different in terms of layout, but this originally was a 12 by 12. I actually printed it smaller because I wanted to try it smaller. But a few key points when you are going to print it. So you would purchase your pattern, you will get an email normally, and in the email there will be a PDF attachment that you will want to download and then go to print. Once you go to your printer setting, there's a few things you want to look for to make sure it prints properly. And one of them is fit to scale, or again, every printer might have different sort of words about describing it. But basically, you want to set it for 100% printing size. And that means it'll print at the size it was designed for. Otherwise, it may print smaller if it's like at print at 70%, or for some reason, mine often goes to 73%. I don't know why. Or sometimes it can be stretched out if you have your printer settings so that you have no borders on your printer and your image would go right to the edges. It may actually print a bit larger. So best to look at your settings, and you want it set for 100%. The other thing you want to do is make sure that your print on both sides option is not on. You want it printed one page per sheet, not on both sides of the same sheet. That will just cause other issues. Um, so I have printed this. Again, this is not a very big pattern, but the premise would be the same whether it is, 12 by 12 or 24 or much bigger. You will just have more of these sheets with the pattern on them. Now, most of these sheets have a dotted line to show you where to cut. And so I'm going to show you, I have already cut some. So this one pattern came on 4 sheets of paper. I have all printed the 4 sheets. I have started to cut some of them. The Oxford Company is very clever, and they tell you this is top left corner of the pattern. Not all of them will do that. The program I use when I print, it just has a number. So it'll be 1 of 2, 1 of 4, and then 2 and 2. Normally, though, you know what the pattern looks like. So it's almost like putting together a puzzle. If worst case scenario, if the pattern you get doesn't have any sort of descriptor on it, it will show you where you are to overlap the design. And it will make sense. I think it will make sense whether you have the words or not. So what I need to do then is line them up. You see, I cut this one. I cut off that excess paper that you see on the bottom here and on the side. This is for this side. And I would tape these two together until they are perfectly lined up. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. And I have the bottom ones. Again, I cut some of them. And I will show you what I'm doing here on the table. I couldn't find my clear tape, so I'm going to use painter's tape, I think. Whatever you have. It doesn't have to be fancy. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing on my table here. So those 2 pieces go together. I'm overlapping them so that they line up perfectly, or as perfectly as you want. I'm not putting my tape there because it is not clear and it will just get in the way. Then this one goes down here, and you can see the lines basically line up. I have already, like I said, trimmed these. This one, I didn't trim that part because it's okay if they overlap a little bit or go under. Oops, wrong way. There we go. The dotted lines need to line up. And I'm putting tape on the outside so that You'll see in a minute why that is important. Um, and I could cut this excess off here. I am not going to worry about it right now. I'm just going to, yeah, nope, that's not going to work. That's why sometimes I cut these. It makes a little bit easier. Anyway, there we go. Lining up. Oops, again, not perfect. This needs to be out. And one more at the bottom to sort of keep it. So now I have my pattern, and I will lay this on top. Now I have a light table here, which you can see. I'm going to just turn it on. Again, I think this came from Amazon several years ago. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can use light tables. This is just a really nice one because it is really thin. It's portable. It's plastic. It's not fragile. And I have used it for several years for probably hundreds of patterns. I just plug it in. I can adjust the light. And I would probably use a bigger piece of monk's cloth normally, but yeah, we're just going to go with it today for the purpose of demonstration. Normally, I like to leave a minimum of 3 inches on each side. This is not quite there, but this is a scrap, and it is just for me, so I am going to go for it. Now, if you don't have a light table, there are lots of options. So for many years, I would take my paper pattern, this version, and again, you could tape it more than this if you wanted to. But I would take this, I would tape it up onto my patio door, and then I would tape my backing on top of it. And the light coming through, you do it on a bright sunny day, hopefully. And you could see the pattern. Same premise as the light table. I would use my patio door or a window that's sufficiently large enough for your pattern. Yes, sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes you have to put a lot of tape to hold up your backing, especially if it's a big pattern, but it absolutely works. Another option that a customer, a student once did, which is just brilliant. If you happen to have a coffee table or a dining room table that is a glass top table, you don't need a light table. You have one. Just get any lamp. What is the other one? You could put a lamp, you could put a flashlight underneath the table and use it just like this. Put your paper on top, put your whatever backing you're using, and draw it through. If you are having a hard time seeing it, if you feel like the lines of your pattern are not very dark, you could go over them with your Sharpie first, just to make them a little bit thicker and darker. Sometimes, depending on your printer, they may have not printed sufficiently dark. Sometimes it's sort of light, or if the lines are too fine, I do feel like some of the patterns go over them with a Sharpie, and that will really help the light come through. But this one is perfectly fine. I can see it through there. And again, this is just for me. It is just a fun one I wanted to test out. And I'm going to show you a few more tricks here. So if you want, you could also tape this to your light table so that the paper doesn't move and the backing doesn't move. And I often do that for complex patterns. For this one, I'm not going to worry about it. Now, one of the tricks is using a new Sharpie. So Sharpies get dull over time. They actually turn, get very rounded tops. This one is still pointy. So you stick it in a groove here, and I'm just kind of holding my monk's cloth above it, and I'm pulling down. So I do not need to use a ruler to get a nice straight edge. I just go in the ditch, I call it, the sort of where the two weaves fit, pull down. I'm holding my fabric. I will do it. Actually, I'll turn my paper this way. I prefer to go in the ditch towards me. I feel like you don't want to go too slow, because then you could pop out of the ditch really easily. But I am giving it quite a good amount of pressure, and it just stays in. So I now have perfectly straight lines because they're following the weave of the monk's cloth. In this case, I'm using monk's cloth here. And look at that. We have a nice, a perfect square. Now, you will notice probably is I go inside the lines of this, because when monk's cloth stretches, it will stretch quite big. And again, I'm trying to keep this pattern small. And again, make sure everything is lined up. And then I would just start following the lines of the pattern. And I am not going to be precious about this. perfection or being exact is not my goal here. Oop, there we go. Um, and I would just keep filling it in. And you would do this whether it's on your window or on a table with a light under the table, or in my case, on a actual light table. And I'm going to keep going around. And that is how you use PDF patterns. So if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in, and I will do my best to answer them or do a little video to show you how I do it. And sometimes we mess up. If we're going too quick like I am and talking at the same time, um, sometimes we mess up, and don't stress about it. Nobody is going to see this part if you're doing it for yourself. Um, it is just part of life that these are just the lines. Um, and there we go. And I will keep going until that is all full. But there you go. That's your PDF pattern. If you had multiple, you just keep sticking those papers together, and you would just keep adding until you have your design completed, and you put it on your backing that way. So I hope that was helpful. Again, let me know if you have other questions about other processes that some of us sort of talk about, maybe take for granted and forget to show you how to do. Thanks for watching.